This week on the Organized Life
For
podcast.
example, with sleep, we know that our ability to be focused, our ability to handle feelings is
Mm,
going to be significantly better with adequate sleep. And then, of course, the other side is true also. It's going to be much more difficult when we're sleep deprived. We know that our energy is going to be better with exercise. So the way I think we can look at it is these five areas are foundational. They are going to allow us to do this work to create and maintain more of an organized existence.
mm-hmm.
And furthermore, a lot of the things that in that consumption area, a lot of the things that are mentally consuming, and these days that would largely be technology, those things can so often distract us and get
Mm.
us away from our goals, and just get caught in that dopamine cycle and veer us off course so easily.
Hey, and welcome to the Organized Life podcast, where we are creating a movement with powerful organizing strategies and systems that save you space, time, energy, and money. I am your host, TakillaRene, the life organizing strategist, professional organizer, and the owner of Xtreme Audacity Organized Solutions. And you guys, I am so excited today. We are continuing this journey on creating the organized life. But before we get into the podcast, I have such an exciting announcement. See, I'm so excited I can't even get it out. I just dropped the Organized Life Masterclass, and I would love for you guys to join me on that journey. We are learning all about how to create the organized life. It's a great community. If you want to be a part of a community that's on the same journey as you, I would love for you to join me. Just go ahead and look in the description for the link, and I'll see you inside. Well, with that being said, thank you so much, Matt, for joining us. Can I call you Matt? Oh, yes, you got it right there.
Yeah,
Thank you
please.
so much, Matt, for joining us on this journey. Would you please tell us a little bit more about you? Yes, I know that you're a licensed psychologist and you spent years working with people who genuinely want to feel better, right? But they feel overwhelmed, inconsistent, and maybe even discouraged by the traditional self care that most of us get advice about. So, outside of that, would you tell us just a little bit more about you and how you got in this field of expertise?
Absolutely. Yeah, I've been doing this for a little over 20 years. I'm a psychologist, licensed psychologist, and I come from a family of helpers. Um, my mom is 91 years old and still doing nonprofit work. So
Wow.
just the force of nature there. So but yeah, I came from that and just kind of knew what I wanted to do throughout and made my way through school and absolutely love it. And so I get to talk with people with all sorts of different things going on. But yeah, what we're going to talk about today has to do with something that I have over the years just seen time and time again is an area where we struggle. We know how important it is, or we know that it's important, but we just don't prioritize it. And
Mm-hmm.
kind of my mission is to just try to make it in that, so that we can take care of the things that we know are so important, but often get kind of put in the back seat.
Get neglected.
That's right.
Yeah. So, you're the co creator of what's called the Primal Five framework, right?
Right. Our primal five. Uh huh.
Primal Five. Okay. Can you walk us through those five fundamental areas and why are they pillars you focused on first?
Absolutely. So the idea again, this came from practice, and when I would meet with people the first time, so often you go over what's going on in their life as well as background information. And so I noticed time and time again that these were areas where people were struggling.
Hmm.
these are areas that we all know, and so those areas are sunlight, sleep,
Mm,
movement and exercise, meaningful connection with others, as well as consuming. So, what we mentally and physically consume. And so, in looking at these time and time again, the way I started to recognize it is these are the things. It's called our primal five because these are things that our bodies were just made to do. Our ancestors did them out of necessity. They didn't have a choice but to do these things, but our world, as it becomes more convenient, has made it actually more challenging to do these basic things that our bodies are made for.
mm. Yeah, that's so interesting, but so true because we kind of have a learned discipline, right? If you have a household or a family that was doing certain things, you're likely going to do some of the certain things, and we do neglect some of the same things that our parents, grandparents,
Sure,
did.
sure,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So many high performing people are my listeners. They listen to this podcast. They're successful professionals, but often depleted in their personal lives. Which of those five areas do you feel that people neglect most often?
That's a great question. Of course, some of that is going to be dependent on the person. I think that any number of them really
Mhm,
honestly can be areas of difficulty. Again, I think that for high achieving people, I think that one of the costs or one of the aspects of high achievement is being so focused on work, being
mhm,
so focused on that achievement that we can put some or many of these things on the back burner that we can get away. That's one of the challenges here is we can get
yeah,
away with not doing some of these things for a
yes.
day or 2 or something like that, and before we know it, we're so accustomed to being depleted that it's just what we know. We just think that's normal. We think it's normal to have a bunch
Mhm,
of coffee all day because we're tired. We get so accustomed to it. Oh, well, of course, I'm going to take some sleep medicine or something like that,
mhm,
or vitamin D because I'm not, getting outside or any number of things. We just get so accustomed to feeling the way that we do. But I think that high achievers can have that tendency to just they prioritize these areas of their life to such an extent that I think that we kind of put to the side these basic needs.
mhm. Yeah, so you spent 20 years, more than 20 years, right? Working as a psychologist with people who genuinely they want to feel better, but they struggle with consistency. From your perspective, what are we misunderstanding about motivation and why it fades?
Well, that is probably in terms of changing our behavior the biggest one. Um,
Mm,
Because I think it is one aspect of taking care of these basics, these primal aspects of our existence. I think it's one of the ways that things that makes us have difficulty. I would say it actually when we're trying to make meaningful change in our life, whether it's these five things, these five areas, or any number of things, I think the biggest problem is we want to be motivated. And I
mm,
know that may
mm,
sound odd to people because it seems like, well, of course. Here's the problem with relying on motivation. If we let the feelings that we have direct our behavior, if we are trying to make sure that we do things that we feel like, we are in a great deal of trouble. Because so often the things that are actually going to be healthy for us, we're not going to feel like. So someone starts a New Year's resolution,
mhm,
excited. They're excited. They're thinking about this area of their life that's going to be better and it's wonderful. And that's great that we have that excitement. About 90% of them are going to fail within a week or two.
My Lord.
Oh, oh my goodness, they fall off quick.
Yes.
But one of the reasons they fall off is people want that excitement and motivation to continue, and it's not going to. Like any
Mm.
feeling, they're gonna fade. And so what is gonna differentiate those who make meaningful change versus those who struggle is gonna be, are we willing to do things regardless of how we feel at the time?
Mhm,
If
mhm.
we're gonna rely on feeling like it, it's going to be awfully difficult to make useful change.
Yeah. Ah, that's a great segue into my next question because in your work, you talk about how people aren't failing because of the lack of discipline, but they're trying to change too many things at once.
Absolutely.
Why does that change everything once approach? Why does it create burnout and it doesn't work?
It's just too much to keep up with.
Mhm.
It's just so many, so many things to monitor and to be aware of. And change is difficult.
Yeah.
Change is not an easy thing. It's doable, but there are certain things that can really help us with it. So often, though, when we try to change multiple things at once, we're not really giving ourselves a chance to change any single thing. Because once we start
Mm.
slipping, then we kind of get into a more negative mindset rather than trying to build some momentum. And I'm going to focus on this, and then I'm going to feel kind of more ability to change other things rather than, I'm going to get outside and I'm going to walk for this amount of time. Those 2 things go together pretty well, but then when I'm focused on, well, I've gotta get this sleep in order, and I wanna make sure that I'm, spending time with as many people as I can spend, and I'm gonna try to stay off the screens for this long, and I'm gonna try to
Mhm.
make sure that I'm putting natural things in my body. I mean, that is a lot to try to do at the same time, and so really the better choice is to try to focus on one. It can be two. I mean, we can kind of combine a few of these things, but really we need to limit it to that and we need to focus on improvement rather than perfection.
Yes. I talk about that so much. Like getting organized is not about being Pinterest perfect, right? It's not
Right.
about the Instagram reels that you see. It's not about the
Uh-huh.
TikTok that videos that you see. It's about creating something that works for you. And that takes time, right? Some people think that when you're getting organized, it's like a one and done. I'm gonna put this stuff just like I saw on TikTok, just like I saw on Pinterest, and my life is just gonna be perfect, right? And it's so far from the truth because, for one, you got to figure out what works for you. And that absolutely, even when getting organized, takes trial and error,
Right.
right? Because you're going to put something in place and you're going to realize, oh, a little bit of this works for me, but some of it doesn't.
Right.
Right. And so I think it's one of the biggest myths about getting organized is that it's like, it's just going to be like magic. I'm going to do this thing and I'm going to stay organized. And it's
Right.
just far from the truth. It's never going to be perfect. It's all about the journey that you're on in this season of your life. And whose journey looks perfect? Nobody's.
I love that. I think the thing I love that you said the most was making something our own,
Mm,
finding what works for us. One thing I've mentioned, to a few people, and it's just such a truth, is that in my practice, in my psychology practice, when I'm working with someone in therapy, one of the things that I will say is I will encourage the person I'm working with to not do what I say or what they think I say, because I really don't tell people what to do.
right.
I don't want them to hear me saying a certain thing and saying, "Okay, he's saying to do this." I don't want that. What I wanna do is offer ideas, offer
Mm,
perspectives, and different types of things, and then I'd like for people to take what clicks for them and make it their own. Make it their own, find what works, in their lives and for them, because that's what's gonna stick. If we're
yeah.
relying on it, I don't know Pinterest, but I trust that it's a resource, and I've certainly heard of it, but I imagine it's a resource for a lot of things, maybe some how-tos, but But everything is not going to work. How other people do things is not always going to work the same way for us. And finding that sweet spot about what works for us is the key.
Yeah, very much so. It's all about using this. You can use the same framework, right? But you can't use it exactly the same as they do, right? You got to put it in a way that works for you.
Right.
Um, so on this podcast, we talk a lot about creating the organized life. Why? Because that's what we do here, right? And many people think that's all about getting your space organized, your closets done, your pantry's looking good, and all that stuff. So, from your perspective as a psychologist, how do those foundational 5 areas that you talk about, how do they help people organize their energy, their moods, and even their mental clarity?
Well, what we know is we know, for example, with sleep, we know that our ability to be focused, our ability to handle feelings is
Mm,
going to be significantly better with adequate sleep. And then, of course, the other side is true also. It's going to be much more difficult when we're sleep deprived. We know that our energy is going to be better with exercise. So the way I think we can look at it is these 5 areas are foundational. They are going to allow us to do this work to create and maintain more of an organized existence.
mm-hmm.
And furthermore, a lot of the things that in that consumption area, a lot of the things that are mentally consuming, and these days that would largely be technology, those things can so often distract us and get
Mm,
us away from our goals, and just get caught in that dopamine cycle and veer us off course so easily.
yeah. Oh, it's the social media, it's the comparison trap.
Sure,
The
sure.
comparison trap. It's so devastating, and I don't think people realize how devastating it is and how it can, like, I think it's one of the biggest cause of our depression, right? What we look at all these things that we see people on the outside doing, what they have, and we don't have the things. And so, we get down in the dumps. And of course, I'm not a psychiatrist or a specialist
No.
in that area. However, I know
Right,
how I feel. Like, and one of the reasons I got off of social media, and I'm not fully off, but I don't get on there because it's not even intentional that somebody's trying to do a thing, but it's just innate in us. Like, it's like, oh, that looks great. I want it. Right?
right, right. Well, you're exactly right. You don't need to be a psychologist. And so, to get it and understand these things. And so there is a lot of research and data out there that we know of how much of a negative impact social media can have on us. And
Mm,
there's a book, The Anxious Generation by Dr. Jonathan Haidt. And he really goes over just the explosion and, as you said, depression and anxiety and
mhm,
suicidality that has happened alongside the explosion of social media. So we know this. We know the negative impact that this can have. It's particularly problematic for teenagers and specifically for females, teenage
mm,
girls.
mhm,
It's particularly damaging, but we know it doesn't have a positive effect on many. Um, but along with that, one of the things that kind of goes along the lines of we don't need to be perfect,
mhm,
that we also know from his research actually, Dr. Height's research, we know that generally speaking, uh, for those who are 18 and under, or actually under 18, 2 hours of screen time a day Once we get over that, that's where the research shows problems start.
Mm,
Actually, for adults, it's 4 hours.
mm,
So that is 4 hours of screen time not work related. That's when we know it starts having a really negative effect. The only people who don't seem to have the same negative effect are people who have really high self-esteems.
mm.
Otherwise, like you said, that comparison trap really traps us. It really gets us, and hits our insecurities.
Ugh, yeah, it's very tough. Very
Abs
tough. Yeah, so we're gonna lighten the load right here and we're gonna flip the mic, Matt.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
Well, here
So huh?
oh, I thought I got to ask my question.
Oh yeah, go ahead. I was just gonna let the people know what we're about to do.
Well,
We're gonna flip the mic and give Matt Dr. Campbell an opportunity to ask me a question.
well, here it is, and it kind of relates to something we were talking about a few minutes ago. I have again and again and again with my clients, I cannot count the number of times when I ask someone about organization,
Mm-hmm.
the number of times that people will tell me how well they can get things organized, but they can't keep them organized.
Mm.
And that is so far and away the difficulty that I hear people describe with organization is I can get it. They get so excited because it feels so good to have their space, clean and put together, but they can't keep it going. How do they do that?
Oh my god, I wanted to jump through the screen. This is like the best question ever. Okay. This is the problem with organization and working to create the organized life because we get organized and we don't know how to maintain it. Because when we created the organization, we did not put a system or a strategy in place to maintain it. So we get our pantry organized, Dr. Campbell, and then we go to the grocery store and we just buy whatever. We don't have a list, we just shop. So we're buying things and bringing things in the house that we don't need. Then we just throw it on the shelf, right? We just throw it in the refrigerator.
Right.
And then, okay, well, what system did you put in place? So ideally, you want to create a menu. Then from that menu, you create a list of items you need for that menu. Then you go shop in your own house. You see what items I have that's on that list so that I can know what I actually need and what I already have. Then you go to the store and buy those things. But even inside of that, if your pantry is already organized, so we're talking about people that have already organized, before you go to the grocery store, before you go buy these things, take 5-10 minutes to retouch your pantry. Like, do the maintenance on it. Put the ketchup back where it goes. Because the kids go in there and get stuff and they put stuff, they don't put it back. Take just a few minutes to get the pantry back the way it's supposed to be. And the refrigerator, get all the old produce out. And so when you bring the things home, you can put them away where they actually go. Uh, and that's probably the biggest thing when we are getting organized. We don't put systems in place to maintain that which we've created. The same thing goes for your closet. So pantries and closets are probably the biggest thing. When you do your closet, if you don't put a laundry cycle in place where you know what day you're washing, folding, doing the entire cycle and putting the things away, your laundry is going to get back out of control, which means your closet is going to get back out of control. Your shoes are going to be all over the floor, everywhere, because you didn't put a strategy or a system in place to actually maintain that which you've created.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Makes sense. That makes sense.
It all goes back to your calendar. And people really don't want to hear that. They want to talk about their physical space. But in order to maintain that which you've created, you got to schedule it. You got to put it in your calendar. You got to schedule when you're going to the grocery store, when you're doing your laundry, when are the kids making their lunch for the next day, right? So all of those things are so important to us maintaining that organization that we create.
Yeah, that
Yes.
sounds great. That
Oh.
sounds really good. That sounds really good. I think of something when you're saying that I really love and I think applies to many things, including the things that I talk about, which is I would imagine that you run into something where there's a lot of people who have these ideas about themselves, and it's, well, I'm not organized. Well,
Mhm.
I'm not disciplined. Well, I'm not
Yeah,
this. And
yeah.
that is such a roadblock.
Mm.
It's not accurate. For example, I'll hear people talk about discipline, which is, I guess, essentially it would be I always do things a certain way, like I was talking about before, regardless of how I feel, I do these things and such. I guess that would be one way to define discipline.
Mhm.
And people say, I'm not disciplined. And yet you get up every morning and go to work. You get up and you do these things that you don't feel like doing. And so in some areas of your life, you're able to do that. It's harder in others. So let's just problem solve it and figure it out and build that up. And no, we're not going to be perfect, but we can be better. But it's those things that we tell ourselves that make changes so challenging.
Yeah, that's so good. I was literally just talking about that with somebody else. We all have discipline. We
Right.
just it's just not in a productive manner if that's the case. Right? Cuz you can sit on the couch for a long time and scroll, right? If you're doing that every day, that's a discipline you've put in place. If you get in the bed every night, turn the TV on and watch TV for 2, 3, 4 hours, that's a discipline you put in place, whether it's conscious or unconsciously, right? So I just believe that the same thing that you're saying, that we all have disciplines. You just have to push that discipline into a more productive way that's actually pushing you towards purpose, something you really want to be, do, have, right? So it's just a matter of, like you said, changing your perspective so that you can have the things that you want.
Well, I think you are right there loading into something that is an enormously important part of changing our behavior. And what I was hearing you describe was structure. I was
Mm,
hearing you describe routine. There are a lot of ways in which the things that I emphasize in our Primal Five kind of seems like, something maybe your parents have talked to you about, or,
mhm,
so on and so forth, and kind of just these, basic, well, of course I'm supposed to do this, and so on and so forth. Well, I'm going to double down on that because one of the things that we don't fully appreciate is that constantly making choices, okay, not having a routine and a schedule, but constantly everything's a decision. Okay, well, I'm going to do this now. I'm going to do
mhm,
this now.
mhm.
It makes life so much more difficult. It makes us so less efficient. That is not to say we shouldn't have choices. That's not to say choices or freedom is bad. Not at all. But when so many things are a choice in our life, emotion is usually going to take us where it
Yeah.
wants to take us if everything is a choice. But when it's a routine,
Mm.
that's kind of hardwired. Now I just do this, and I'm not constantly asking myself, "Do I feel like it? Do I feel like it? Do I?"
Mhm, mhm, mhm.
And that helps with behavior change so much, and it's really a matter of repetition. And I'm trying to do these things. I want to have that schedule and that routine, and that makes life so much easier. You don't have to have a rigid routine. It
Mhm.
doesn't need to be like a military type thing. But having certain things we do at certain times, such, is so helpful to making healthy change.
Yeah. So I love that. And I want to go back to one thing that you said earlier when we were talking about trying to change too many things at one time. Until you have that routine down pat,
Mhm.
it's so important to not keep adding on,
Right.
right? Like I have done that before, trying to change. I'm going to eat right. I'm going to work out. I'm going to all these things that I was trying to do to get my life together at one time, at the beginning of the year. And
Sure.
then
Sure. We've all been there.
yeah, by January 11th, I am done. I'm over it. I'm back on the couch doing nothing, so irritated with myself and feel like I don't know what to do. When I do know what to do, my feelings, right? What I'm wanting to do is winning over the routine that I had. So I thought that was great because if you can get that routine in place and in the one area, once you it becomes a discipline, then you can start adding a new routine.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that so much of what you said, I couldn't agree with anymore. And I think that it's too much to manage. Like you said, it keeps us from being able to strengthen it through a routine and then of course adding on to it from there. And to me, again, I think that our behavior often is not going to be random. And so it's a
Mm,
lot of times focusing on one thing can help us to figure out what is leading me to have this problem. What are some things that can be helpful in terms of that behavior change? In the
mm-hmm,
book that we have, that's one of the things that we try to go over is what kind of behavior change techniques that are, research backed, but these behavior change techniques can help us figure out what is it that I'm getting from this behavior? What are some good ways to make those changes? Because a lot of times it's, just like motivation, it's not a matter of I'm going to do this, so therefore I will. Sometimes we need to kind of get an idea.
mm-hmm,
Is it maybe my comfort foods? Is it, as you were describing earlier with the organization, is it my shopping habits
mm-hmm,
that are creating what we call low friction for bad diet choices? In other words,
mm.
really easy to make bad choices for what I eat. So anyway, a lot of times it can take isolating. I'm going to focus on this one until, again, as you said, I've built a routine.
Ah, that's so good. So when we talked before, one of the things we talked about, you mentioned that most things that we need are often simple,
That's right.
but they're hard to prioritize. Why do humans tend to overlook the basics, even when when they know that these things, the basics, can have the biggest impact?
I think that it has to do with the world we're living in.
Mm,
Think about these things. Sleep. About a third of people are sleep deprived. Being connected with other people, we have about half of people report significant loneliness. There was a
mm,
white paper from the Surgeon General on this epidemic of loneliness. You mentioned the shopping. 80 to 90% of people, their diets are poor. So we
mhm,
know these things. So getting to your question, what is keeping us from it? We live in a world where there is almost always something fun, something that can be like a dopamine booster for us that we can do in the short term. And as humans, we're often short term focused. We're often looking for the how can I maximize pleasure and minimize pain in this moment. And of course, when we're short term focused, we're often going to make bad decisions.
yeah.
And so it's challenging. It's so much more challenging than any generation before us because, our ancestors didn't have the option of these aisles in the grocery store, right? When you shop in the grocery store, go around the perimeter because that's usually where the healthy stuff is. all those
Exactly.
aisles. Our ancestors didn't have those aisles. They didn't have these computers that we call phones, that are so, interesting and stimulating. They didn't have climate controlled environments that they could stay in with artificial light. Like, so for us, we have
Mm,
to be really, really intentional. Whereas our ancestors some time ago, they didn't have to be.
yeah.
I feel like people can be real judgy that we don't do these things very well. I think it can be like, "Oh, we're lazy." And it drives me crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy because again, that's something that people tell themselves that is unhelpful and it's not fair because this generation right now, we have to be more intentional with these things than anyone before us. And I think it's important to recognize the challenges and then engage in the behaviors. We need both
Mm-hmm.
understanding and action. That's how change occurs. And so,
Understanding and action.
absolutely. And so, to your question, I think it's difficult because we have so many options that can give us a short-term boost and are more fun.
You know what's funny, Dr. Campbell? People are often judgy in the areas that they've had to overcome.
Yeah, yeah,
You know, they are healthy now. They're getting fit. They're eating right and all these things. And now they're judging you for not doing it. They used to scroll on social media for hours and hours and hours. They don't do
right.
that on anymore. They're delivered from that, right? And now they're judging you for doing it. I just think it's crazy.
Yeah, well, I've seen similar things as you, and I do. I think that it is interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because more than anyone else, they should understand how difficult uh,
Yeah.
making those changes is. I don't know, maybe it's a flex or something like that. I don't know, but
That's
it's
that's probably true.
yeah, but you'd think logically it would be the opposite.
Uh-huh. One of the things that you emphasize is that people need structure more than they need motivation. We talked about that a little bit. So let's talk a little bit about practicality. What does a healthy structure actually look like in our everyday life without feeling rigid and overwhelmed?
Mhm. I think that one thing that helps a lot with that is to first of all, I think it can be helpful, and we were talking earlier when we were talking about kind of identify an area and things like that, and that is absolutely true. I
Mm-hmm.
think that is most specifically true in sleep, the area of sleep that we really need to kind of let's just focus on that area and also
Mm-hmm.
consumption. But when you look at something like getting sunlight, moving our bodies, meaningful social connection, when we look at those things, we could do those together. We
Mm-hmm.
could find a friend to walk with. We can do something like that where we're knocking out several. And let's say that's my morning routine.
Yeah.
Let's say I do that in the morning. I can do it I mean, whatever fits your schedule. But if I can create that, that's part of my schedule and routine. Okay, so I've got that. But I think that the structure that we're talking about and looking for, it's trying to find at what times of day do I need to do what. So, do you want to know one of the best sleep management techniques?
Of course.
Get sunlight in the morning.
Oh.
So often, we focus and appropriately so, having that routine 30 minutes to an hour before bedtime, sleeping, going to bed at a similar time each night, a cold, dark room that we're sleeping in. These things that we know, don't drink caffeine after noon, these types of things, and we know them and
Mm-hmm.
they are important and they're great. But when we get that sunlight in the morning, it is setting our circadian rhythm, our 24-hour cycle, and it's letting us know it's morning time. And so it's kind of giving our body time to get into that routine. And so and the research suggests that morning sunlight is the best. So that would be helpful to be part of the structure. And it's fantastic if it could be with movement. Movement early is great. It would be great if it was with somebody, may or may not be possible. But
Mm-hmm.
even with that, I think that part of a healthy routine, I mean, if we can't do that, if that doesn't work for us, you know what? If you're going to have a cup of coffee, a cup of tea, whatever you drink in the morning, stand outside, sit outside and have it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, now we're getting that morning sunlight, we're doing these things, but it's setting up a schedule with these things. If we can, kind of have things come together, like I said, with the sleep and the sun, I'm sorry, with the sun and the social and the movement, fantastic. But the schedule and sleep, oh my goodness, when we talk about a schedule, sleep, and I won't get into the weeds too much with you on it, but sleep is so much of helping ourselves with sleep has to do with the schedule, has to do with conditioning.
So would you say that the sleep, the sun, is that where we need to start when we're trying to build our foundation?
Well, where I encourage people to start, I encourage people to begin by trying to basically take stock of where they are. Try
Oh,
to get a sense of where am I? Let's get an idea of where am I with getting outside. How long am I getting outside in the sun for? How much sleep am I getting? How much movement am I getting? How much time am I spending with people who I have a good, meaningful connection with? How much, what am I eating? Am I drinking a lot of alcohol? Am I drinking enough water? Like these
mm,
things. Let's first take stock of that and let's figure out, okay, where are the spots that would be most useful for me to work on? Where are my deficits? I'm actually kind of in the final stages, about to release an app. And the
mm,
purpose of the app is for people to be able to monitor these things for themselves.
mm-hmm.
Behavior change tips. It lets them see their progress
Right.
over time. It has a lot of these things. But one of the things is just to be able to spend a minute or two. Let's just take stock of where I am on these things so that I can check it out. I can see, okay, what is considered the healthy range for these things? Where am I with that? And then to your question, then we can kind of go after it. Then we can look into, okay, what seems to be a big area of need for myself, and let's do that. With the workbook, we suggest the same, is that,
Mm-hmm,
you know
mm-hmm.
what, if there's one area that going in is a difficult area for you, jump to that chapter of the workbook. Absolutely. You don't have to go one after the other.
Right.
Let's get after it where we need it.
So I love that because even when we're talking about the organized life and creating that, you got to start with taking stock, with being self aware of where you are so that you can know, this is where I am. And I know I don't want to be here, right? But now I got to figure out how to get to the other destination. Now I have to go on this journey. But you got to first start with being self aware. I don't think that the reason I know when somebody is ready to get organized is because they are self aware. They've taken stock and they've said, okay, yeah, I need help.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
It's the only way to know where are those spots. Yeah, where am I struggling, or what might be keeping me from the solid foundation? And for your work, I mean, there's so much overlap here. It starts with
Yes.
self-awareness,
Mm-hmm.
understanding along with that awareness, and then that helps us to be able to better make those changes, to figure out what is going to help us with those changes.
All right, Dr. Campbell, this is my final question. If someone they're committed to protecting just a few of these foundational habits in the next 30 days,
Mhm.
what changes might they realistic begin to notice in their energy, their clarity, and even their overall well-being?
It is so far and wide. It is truly amazing. Even as passionate as I've been about this for so long,
Mm-hmm.
when I was putting the workbook together, when I was looking at the research, it was really even eye-opening, you know, uh, for me, again, despite the fact that I've encouraged this for so long, sleep, golly, I mean, it's the bedrock. If you're not getting sleep, mood, how you handle feelings, I mean, you can find a greater sense of stability and alertness, emotional stability, handling things, our thinking skills, mood, all of these things that are hugely impacted by sleep. And I'm just talking about the mental, emotional, those
Mm-hmm.
aspects. Of course, there's so many with physical functioning, sunlight, mood, huge mood regulator, helps with sleep later in the day. Social connection in terms of, certainly mood and value and energy that we get, just realizing as humans, we're pack animals. We don't survive alone.
Mm.
We have so many things that can kind of give us the feeling that we're connected, but really meaningfully connecting with others in a way that we're feeling heard, we feel better afterwards. But loneliness, it keeps us from loneliness. It helps with our mood. It can reduce our anxiety, all sorts of
Mm-hmm.
things. So I could keep going on and on, but
Yeah.
I won't bore you with that. But it's basically, it touches just about everything, um, depending on the area, of course.
Yeah. Well, you're definitely not boring me because I'm so geeked out about this conversation. It's been so awesome. Thank you so much for being here. You've given us so much insight and wisdom in this particular area.
Well, thank you, and thank you for having me, and I enjoyed the chat.
Yeah. Well, listen, the Organized Life listeners, thank you guys for joining us today. I hope that you enjoyed this conversation with Dr. Campbell. It's been great for me. I cannot wait to watch it again because it's so different. I watch all my podcasts over again because it's different being here. I don't feel like I hear everything. And you know how it is. You watch a movie once, you watch it the second and the third time, and you hear something totally different. So that's how I feel about these conversations. They are so good. And remember, you guys, if you want to be a part of the Organized Life Masterclass, go ahead and click on the link, the Organized Life HQ, it's the headquarters, the organizedlifehq.com/masterclass. And I can't wait to see you there. Also, remember, if whatever strategy or system you're putting in place, it's not saving you in all four areas: space, time, energy, and money. Tweak it, revisit it, see what's working, do more of that, and the things that are not, subtracting. Okay. If you would like to be a guest here on the Organized Life podcast, please send us an email at info@xtremeaudacity.com. Or if you have a question for me or one of my guests, send us an email. And until next time, once again, thank you so much, Dr. Campbell, for being here. I really appreciate it. And we'll see you guys next time. Ciao.